Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're looking at the most recent poll from ABC News and WAPO that came out yesterday and is already receiving a lot of attention, not necessarily for the best reasons, but we'll talk about it, and I'll talk about why I really don't think this is a good poll. So, obviously, I've talked about this before, but as a ground rule, I generally don't love paying too much attention to early polls because they're a snapshot of an electorate that is less tuned in than they will be a year from now, is less, and is overall just less representative of the eventual electorate, right? In 2019, we had a lot of weird early polls. Some were really good for Democrats, some were really bad for them. And the fact of the matter is that if you go back to September 2019 and you did a poll of a Biden versus Trump national electorate, the people who would respond to that poll, those people are more tuned in a year out from the election, and there would be a whole other demographic or other chunk of people who would not really know who to vote for yet. They don't really care about politics. They don't, they're not necessarily very pro either party, or maybe they haven't made up their mind yet. But by the next year, by the time election season rolls around, they know who they're going to vote for. So that happens every year. And there's also just a lot of undecideds. Like this poll, we have like 6-7% undecided. So it's definitely a poll you should just, even based off the timing, take with a grain of salt. But to me, I'm not against early polls, so I'm not going to criticize this poll for being a year out. Obviously, we shouldn't, it's not like we shouldn't do polls until June of election year. But this poll, to me, is pretty crazy. I don't know why the people at ABC and WAPO didn't just spike it. And for those of you who don't know, spiking a poll is when you do a poll, you get the results back, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is not what we were expecting. This is completely implausible. Let's just, not release it. Let's run it back, and hopefully we can get a more, a more reasonable result. It's kind of like, the best analogy for it, I guess, is like when you're in high school and you're doing a lab in chem class, and you get a ridiculous result, so you erase it, you run it back, and you get a better result to decrease your margin of error. I obviously have never done that. Never in my entire life have I ever done something like that. But, that's besides the point here. So, I'm going to say that this is probably the worst poll of 2023 so far, at least Biden versus Trump. Trump is not winning by 10. Trump might win the election. He will not win the popular vote. He might win the Electoral College. He won't win the popular vote. But this poll has him winning the popular vote by 10, and it has him up 13 with independents. So that in and of itself is pretty ridiculous. If you go to 2020 exit polls, Biden won independents by like around 20 points, and he won the national electorate by 4.5. So the fact that independents went from being 15% to the left of the country to 3% to the right of the country in this poll is a little strange to me. There's some more things that are a little weird. A lot of people have dunked on this poll already. I'm not going to go through the crosstabs because I think crosstabs are messy. When you're a month away from the election, it's good to look at the crosstabs. That's kind of why I was very skeptical, for example, of all of the polls that, showed Mark Kelly lose, or, showed Blake Masters winning, or Herschel Walker, because especially in Georgia, the crosstabs had Herschel Walker doing like 20% better with black voters than he ended up doing. And, so crosstabs are valuable, just not this far out. And so to kind of visualize how bad this poll is, I'm going to show you what a Trump plus 10 national electorate would look like. This is if you take the 2020 election, then shift it 15% to the right, because Biden won the popular vote by 4.5, and he's down by 10 here, so we'll round it up to 15. The map would look like this. Donald Trump would win nearly 360 electoral votes, kind of a 2008-esque landslide type margin of victory here. He would come within 15% of winning California. He would nearly win Oregon. He would do well in Washington, Illinois, Delaware, and the only states Biden would win by more than 15 are Maryland, D.C., not a state, but the point, Massachusetts, Vermont, and not even, that's it, and also Hawaii. Trump would obviously win all of his 2020 states, save margin. He'd flip back all the, Biden states that were within 9 or 10 points by likely margins. He'd even win Colorado. He'd even win Virginia and New Mexico. So it would be a pretty big win, to say the least. And I would definitely say that this is not the most likely outcome. In fact, I would be willing to bet a lot of money that this is not going to happen, and that's because whether or not you think Biden's going to lose, some of these states like Colorado, for instance, I think it's the most ridiculous, because he won it like Clinton won it by 5 in 2016, Biden won it by 14 in 2020. I don't know why it would swing all the way back in this national landslide for Trump. I also don't understand why Donald Trump would be favored to win Minnesota by so much when he lost it by 7 last time and is losing support in the suburbs of Minneapolis, and in the 2022 midterms, Democrats did really well there. So this electoral map obviously is not plausible. I think maybe Trump can win back some of these states like Nevada or Georgia or Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, just not by 8-9 points. So that's what I think about this map specifically, and obviously the poll didn't do a state by state result. Like they didn't have Trump winning Colorado, but again, that's what you would get if you shifted the nation by that much. Excuse me. And so just to kind of talk like more broadly about the popular vote, because it doesn't really matter, right? Like the popular vote, ask Al Gore or Hillary Clinton, it does not matter who wins the popular vote. Obviously, in America, the Electoral College is what decides the winner of the presidential election. And so if you get a victory in the popular vote, you're likely to win the Electoral College, but it's not a guarantee, right? Like Hillary Clinton, and this is especially relevant today because Democrats now more than ever have a very urban blue state coalition, right? Like they do very well in New York City, LA, Chicago, San Francisco, DC, Boston, big cities in blue states, and they win. Like if you go back to the 2000, like Al Gore won New York by 25, and Biden maintained that. He won it by 23. And if you go to California, Biden did a lot better. Like 2000, Al Gore won it by 12, Biden won it by like 30. So even in New York, which is a semi-right trending state, Democrats have held their own because they've been doing really well in places like Manhattan. And then you go to California, or you go to Massachusetts or Virginia or Washington, Democrats are doing better now than they were 20 years ago. So because they're doing so well in these big liberal urban areas, they're able to run up the margins in those states. And again, Biden netted 5 million votes out of California. I think he got 10 million, Trump got 5 million. And 5 million votes, that was almost his entire national popular vote margin. He won by 7 million nationwide, so 5/7 of that came from California. I bet the rest of it, I think, would probably come from New York. I think Biden won New York by maybe 2 million. If not New York, throw in Illinois, throw in Massachusetts, and you've easily got there. So it's popular vote now more than ever is skewing Democratic. And so for Trump to win the popular vote, he'd not only have to do really well in the Electoral College, as I've shown you, he'd also have to do really well in a lot of blue states. Like he'd have to, right, like San Francisco gave Biden like 89% of the vote in 2020, Trump like 8% or 9%. He'd probably have to crack like 25 there, if we're being real, for him to win the popular vote by that much. He'd have to like get like George W. Bush suburban margins in the South. He'd have to like turn the clock back to 1972 in San Francisco and Seattle. He'd have to like just really, really win back a lot of urban voters, or have like every person who voted for Biden in 2020 in a big city just not turn out. And so for that reason, not going to happen. Obviously, Trump is already unlikely to even win the popular vote. In 2016, which was his best election, he lost it by 2.5% to Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton, again, she did fine in terms of the popular vote. She didn't do that much worse than Obama, but she did not have the turnout necessary to win a lot of these states that she ended up losing, cost of the presidency, obviously. That is very well known. And so the fact that Donald Trump couldn't do it against Hillary Clinton, I don't know why he'd be able to do it against Joe Biden, especially because Biden beat him by twice as much in the popular vote as Hillary Clinton did in 2016. And then, go back to previous elections, 2012, Obama won the popular vote by like 3%. In 2008, he won the popular vote by like 8%, maybe 7%. 2004 is the last time Republicans won the popular vote. Bush beat Kerry by like 2% nationwide. And again, that's because Kerry did not, right? Like, just look at the margins on this map. Like, every blue state now was closer. California, Kerry only won, he won it by single digits. Can you imagine if Biden only won, not even Gavin Newsom last year won California by single digits. Kerry won Washington by 7. He won Illinois by 10. New York was within 20 points. His home state was Massachusetts, so he did well there, but he did not do very well in Maryland. New Jersey was pretty close, and so, excuse me, overall, the margins in blue states, since it was so much smaller, Kerry won the popular vote by he didn't win it, but he did way worse than Biden or Clinton did, because Clinton, even though she, lost a lot of states in the Midwest that carry one, she was able to win California by 3 times as much. So that is kind of the point of this video. Popular vote will not go Republican. Trump can win the Electoral College. I could totally see that happening, but he will not win the popular vote. If he wins it by 10, I will film myself, eating my shit. And I hold me to that. If Donald Trump wins the popular vote by, 10, even, 5%, I will be shocked. So this poll, I would throw it in the trash. It's a year out. The crosstabs are wacky. And this top line is just something straight out of a movie. It's ridiculous. So thank you so much for watching. Again, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you all in the next one.